He okay?
Now call the January monthly meeting of the Pascagoula-Gautier School Board of Trustees to order. We'll have the presentation of the colors by the Pascagoula NJROTC, followed by prayer by Mr. Taylor McNeil, and the pledge by Mr. Glenn Irving. You'll stand. From that, please take note that we have 4 board members present, Mr. Johnson being absent. Mr. Dolphin, we have an agenda before us. Do you have any additions?
I do not.
Any board member have anything they'd like to add to the agenda?
I like that. Related to posting the county about the work over per se for baseball field.
Any other board member? Hearing none, need approval of the agenda. Motion by Ms. Wilson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Irving to approve. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0. Next we have 1D, School Improvement Presentation, Dr. Stuart Smurthwaite.
All right, good evening. Glad to see everybody here this new year. Look forward to a prosperous and very academically excelling new year here in 2020. And Mr. Swift's getting our information pulled up. I will tell you the first part of the presentation that talks about our second screening. When I had to turn this in last week, I didn't have complete data, so I'm going to save that for our next meeting. But I can promise you it's going to be a juicy and fruitful update in February. But I can talk about some of our December numbers. I've got a hard copy if I need it. So again, our second benchmark assessment, the window's not closed yet, and when I turned this in last week, we're missing just a handful of students, but I didn't want to come before you with incomplete data, so I'll have that for you at our next meeting. But I can talk about our December numbers. Looking at our school enrollment, around the same thing, about 590. Average daily attendance was up from November. People started getting a little more healthier, feeling a little better in December, so our students were getting there better. Our chronic absences were down, our teacher attendance was up, and our discipline referrals were down. So December overall was a really good month for us. Getting the students and teachers were there and working at a high level, and the students staying in class and out of the office since we had a lower number of discipline referrals. So everything was looking good, and unless you have any other questions, that's all I have for you this evening.
Any board member, any questions? Okay.
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Mr. Smurthwaite. Item 1E, School Improvement Presentation, Dr. Myrick Nix.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Kind of piggybacking again off what Mr. Smurthwaite said, we are currently looking at waiting on complete numbers from our second diagnostic. The window closes next week, so again in February we'll have some much better numbers about the growth that we've made overall. Looking at Commerce data for this year, I know that I've been providing you with comparisons from the previous year. We were debating on some of the formulas that we were doing for student ADA. I want to get with Mr. Ladner just to make sure that we're calculating those correctly. So before I provide any new data with the comparison of last year, just want to make sure that calculation is the way it needs to be. But just moving forward with our December numbers, student enrollment down a little bit. Again, we had a little of a slump with student ADA. Had lots of people out with the flu, stomach viruses for the month of November and December. Students with 2 or more absences, that number's steadily declined, and we're happy about that. Teacher attendance rate was up from November. So students were not coming, but teachers were. So we were there waiting on them. And then the number of referrals steadily decreasing. Today was a special day at Calmer. We had a lot of celebrations for our performance second 9 weeks with students. We had team celebrations for our team points. We also had pause bracelets, that's for our student attendance, for work ethic, that's for coming to school. So we were able to celebrate students throughout the day today, just based on some of the new things that we're doing at Calmer, taking a group of teachers to a conference here soon to really learn how to keep students engaged and wanting to come to school. And so we're very excited about the Renaissance Conference that's coming up. But, next February, you'll see all of that growth from all of our efforts. So, any questions?
Any questions?
I just have something. Two of your students job shadowed with Michael last Friday, and they were so impressive. Like, everyone in the office couldn't get over the manners that they had. They were just so eager to learn about the law and being a lawyer, and Michael just had so much fun with them. But I was so impressed. It always makes me feel good when our students give a good impression to people that aren't in our district. So I just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you. And that's been the feedback I've been getting from parents and community leaders, just about the kids going out and just how professional they were and well dressed. So thank you.
Dr. Nix, can you share just the details of the letter you received from Dr. Petrie?
Yes, sir.
On campus, who's a blue ribbon principal from the Biloxi School District, who's now retired, works at William Carey.
And Dr. Petrie was on our campus one day last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, but she came to observe one of the teachers that's in her program. While she was on our campus, she just observed a lot of things, and she took it upon herself to send me an email, excited about the things that she saw for young people at our school, from the way they entered school, from the adults that were on campus, that were smiling, welcoming kids. And this is not the first day of school. This is well into the school year, and we still have that momentum going. And she saw that, and that's a seasoned administrator, someone who is still in the business of education. And so it was quite an honor for her to see those things going on in our school on that day. So, thank y'all.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, item 1F, school improvement presentation by Dr. Tara Hayden.
Good evening. As Mr. Smirkway and Dr. Dix said, we will receive our first semester data Wednesday or Thursday from TE21, so we'll have an update with the data during our next school board meeting. But our school enrollment, a couple fewer students, not a significant difference. We're down to 1041. Student ADA, 92.6, that was good for the month of December, I think. Chronic absenteeism, 28.5, again, more higher than we would like, but a decline from the month before. Teacher attendance rate, 93.9, just a little bit of a decline, but again, not a huge difference. And our number of discipline referrals are also on the decline. We just received our first semester state test data, and at first glance, things are looking up. You'll get more information on that on the next meeting as well.
Can you just give them the percentage for your?
At first glance, biology 100% pass rate,
Wow.
and algebra 100% pass rate. We're still looking at, English doesn't look too bad, and we hadn't gotten history. We haven't received history.
Very good.
Any questions?
Yes.
I've got a couple of questions, Dr. Fair.
Sure.
What was that, the biology 100% pass rate, what was that for again?
That was the state test. That was the biology 1 state test that goes into the accountability model. So that was first semester.
They also had 100% proficient in advanced.
And biology as well.
That's great. So will that semester score count towards the school score at the end of the year?
It'll average. So so we'll have a second round of testing at the end of the year, and it'll average together, and that will give us our percentages.
Okay. A couple questions about the data, and this is somewhat relevant to all the schools. And just remind me, and this is somewhat I'm just trying to remind some of our visitors. All right, so when it says percentage proficient as the overall school goal, is that the overall school goal for the end of the year? Or is that the overall school year at the beginning of the year?
End of the year. The
Okay,
goal is for the end of the year, yes.
okay. And is that based on the state test?
Yes, it's based on the state test, and it's based on what we scored last year. Because, I mean, nobody wants to be, what we said, our goal is 80%, nobody wants to be 80%, because what about the other 20%? But 80% would be an increase from last year, from the year
Okay.
before.
So, but our goal is to be 70% proficient in English 2, and then 80% growth of all. And what does that mean more specifically?
So the state looks at how many students grow, it looks at proficiency overall, and then it looks at how many students, out of all of our students, how many grow, and then it looks at the 5 and 25, of our 20, what is the percentage of the students who are in our lowest 25, how much they grow.
Okay, and I just don't, I guess I don't quite understand growth, because if you've never taken, I mean, is it growth from like English 1 to English 2?
No, sir, it is growth from their 8th grade. It's growth from their 8th grade state. So English is growth from their 8th grade state test to their 10th grade state test. Yes, that's how the state calculates it.
Okay, so from your 8th grade test to your 10th grade
Because they don't
test.
take the English 2 until 10th grade.
And so 80% growth means that, I guess it means that 80% of our students, they grew a little.
We want 80% of our students to make at least a year's growth.
Okay, and then maybe I just need to talk offline. I guess I'm just not quite following how you measure growth from an 8th grader to a 10th grader, how you can correlate that.
Or our
back.
statisticians say we pay a lot of money. They tell us that we can, so we just use their formulas.
I can tell you, with the scale scores that they set up, as far as the state goes, let's say in 8th grade, they score an 860. So that would qualify them for let's say a 3B on the growth chart. So they have to go to a 4 in their 10th grade year, so to score that, they need to be probably around a 1065. So they have a scale set up, and you go on the growth levels, 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 4, and then 5, 4 being proficient. So as they score in 8th grade, they'll get a scale score and a growth range, which they may be 3A, 3B. So to get growth, you have to move from one growth level to the next.
The reason why they do that, because you can't expect a student who's scored rock bottom to all of a sudden score grade level. So we get some credit for growing kids. So no, you didn't make them proficient, however, you did grow this. This kid came to you at this level, and you did grow them to the next level. So we do get some credit for growing students.
Okay, and then there's a couple of, I think it's semester, it says 52% proficient for English 2. Is that what that is?
That was our TE21 benchmarks. Now, where the goals are, those were our state percentages. That's from the state test. So the benchmark that we use, those are tests that we take throughout the year to gauge where we are. That was our first benchmark from TE21.
Okay, and then, but what does the YL stand for?
Year long. So we have semester courses. The first one is our semester courses, and then we have our year long. So that 52%, those were the students who were in that class for the semester. So that LY, those are the students who are in the class year long. So it depends on the student's strengths, whether they're in for a semester or whether they're in year long.
And I can comment on that, looking at that 52%. Okay, that's when we took the benchmark. So for those semester students, they had 52%. Well, those kids that were in the semester course, we just got their data back. And I want to say Pascagoula High School was 84% proficient. So they went from 54% to 84%. That was that much.
So in August, when we took that test, they were 52% proficient. Now that we've gotten our state test back, we're showing that we're 84% proficient. So between August and December, our teachers grew our kids that amount.
Okay, so the first benchmark is taken in August.
Mhm.
That's right,
Mhm,
okay.
mhm.
And that's based on the state test?
Yes.
The benchmark?
Yes. And we just completed our second benchmark, and we'll have that data for you.
Is the benchmark assessment, is that developed in-house in our school district, or are we taking something that every school district
We
takes?
purchased it from TE21, just with some research. Most of our A districts in the state, they use the TE21 benchmarks. So we began using those this school year.
And do y'all like the TE21?
So far, so good. So, yeah.
Just high school.
It's, we started with the high schools, and I think this semester, middle schools are gonna pick it up as well.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Payton. Item 1G, presentation of Patricia King.
Hi, good evening. It's an honor to be here. I have great news. We received notification with the state that our graduation for our students with disabilities data came in, and we were number 2 in the state. Super proud of all of us. It's a big feat if you'll scroll up. Just quickly, I'm going to kind of explain this chart. I keep this chart. Each year I add our graduation rate. Of course, it's a moving target because it's based on the number of seniors you have. So, example, 60 seniors between the 2 high schools. That means that we graduated 43 of them with traditional high school diplomas. Of that data, we had 52% were SLD, 9% EMD, 2% autism, and then 10% OHI. OHI being our other health impaired, which we had a couple of students with leukemia, and then some students with ADHD and some students with other health impairments who qualify. We're really super excited. It takes the whole team. It starts with pre-K for our students, and it goes all the way up to elementary, our academies, our secondary, our middle schools, our high schools. So it takes all of us. So we're super excited that we, in Jackson County, we are at 72.9% for this past data. So we're super excited to announce that. We want to share that with y'all. And just kudos to everybody that does it.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Queen. Item 1A, do we have any visitors, Mr. Dawson?
We have a visitor who needs to be moved to executive session for possible board action.
And now we come to item 2A.
We're moving several routine items to a single consent agenda. Any board member may request that any or all items on the consent agenda be removed and considered as a separate item. If no such request is made, all items on the consent agenda may be approved by a single action of the Board of Trustees. Consent agenda, request for approval of consent agenda items, request for approval of board meeting minutes, December 9th, 2019, December 18th, 2019. Request for approval of personnel resignations recommendations, request for approval of the transfer of student assignments and transfers. Request for approval of the agreement for non-payment of maintenance funds and tuition for transfer students, Long Beach School District. Request for approval of out-of-district students whose parents are employees. Request for approval of release of students. Request for use of donations and grants. Request for approval of facility. Request for approval of removal of equipment from inventory and disposal. Request for approval of application certificate of payment number 21 to Ward Smith Incorporated. Request for approval of construction change order number 2, PHS Performing Arts Center project. Request for approval of construction change directive number 10, Pascagoula High School Performing Arts project. Request for approval of 2019-2020 extra duty supplements. Request for approval of 2019-2020 athletic supplements. Request for approval of the Pascagoula Adult Learning Center compensation for high-set testing. Request for approval of single source sole purchase, ACT Incorporated. Request for approval of sole source purchase. Request for approval to accept bid for 2004 Bush Hog Lawnmower. Request to award RFP 52620 district-wide training professional development for teachers and other district personnel in sheltered English instruction. Request to award RFP 52820 language acquisition program. Request recommendation to award RFP 53020 for direct instruction math intervention program to be used as special education subgroup. Request for approval to void accounts payable checks. Request for approval to request for proposals, WAN service. Request for approval of revision of policy BCAC, special meetings of the board. Request for approval of new board policy JNB, zero by literacy. Request for approval of overnight field trip, CCTI. Request for approval of overnight field trip, PHS speech and debate. Request for approval of overnight field trip, speech and debate. Request for approval of overnight field trip, PHS speech and debate 3. Request for approval of overnight field trip, PHS US history. Request for approval of overnight field trip, GHS annual staff. Request for approval of gifted assessment staff. Request for approval of Title III FY20 Limited English Proficiency LAP Grant Fund 2560. Request for approval of William Calmer Middle School's Improvement Plan for FY20.
Request for approval of Gautier Middle School's improvement plan FY20. Request for approval of Gautier High School school improvement plan for FY20. Request for approval of Trent Lott Academy school improvement plan for FY20. Request for approval of Pascagoula High School school improvement plan for FY20. Request for approval of special education contract for services with JLM Consulting. Request for approval of Derek Reed as the English Workforce Initiative. Request for approval to advertise and accept bid 2020 miscellaneous district-wide improvements project. Request for approval to advertise and accept bid 2020 miscellaneous flooring and painting improvements project. Request for approval of bid Gautier High School roof replacement and miscellaneous district-wide roofing improvements project. Request for approval to request Jackson County Board of Supervisors to provide paving. Request, and get to this bottom because it keeps skipping on me. It's recommended that all items on the consent agenda for January 21st, 2020 be approved.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Irvin, second by,
I'll second, but I get,
okay, I thought,
well, go ahead.
we'll that question when we get the first motion.
Well, actually, I can't second, because I'd like to request that R be removed. R Mandels, the bid to award to Mandels be removed from a separate item on the agenda, and be removed from a consent, 2R, 2R, or I guess it's 3R. Yeah, 3R be removed for a separate action item. I wasn't able to
Okay, I should have.
confirm that I didn't have a conflict, and with my conflicts check with Mandels, and so I'll have to remove that one.
Okay. I guess, okay, so we don't have a second for that. Yeah, we don't have a second for that one, so, right, Kelly, if we don't have a second for it, then we just have to move on and have a new motion, or you want to just amend the motion?
Sorry, is there not a second to?
No, we don't have a second, so we'll just move on and have a new motion, correct?
That's fine.
Right, okay, so I need a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of R on the second part. The request for approval of bid from Mandel.
70.
No, that's the right one.
It's moved now.
Okay. A motion by Ms. Wilson to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Irving. Any discussion on the item?
I also have a couple questions about some other consent agenda
Okay.
items. The first is, we approve personnel and it's not really a question, it's more of a request, so to speak. We approve personnel resignations and recommendations every month. It'd be helpful if we could, but I want to get y'all the feedback from the administration. As we look at resignations and recommendations, and as we try to figure out budgeting, and as we try to figure out, well, if somebody resigns from a position, is it a position, should we fill it or not, from a board perspective, what our view of that is. And I guess I don't have a good grasp of that, and part of it is I don't think I have a good grasp of what all of our administrative positions are that we have in the school district and what they do necessarily. For example, like, if we have a certain department, who all's in that department? Like, how many employees do we have in that department? And even, I guess, more specifically, how much have we grown employee-wise, like over the last 15 years? Where were we 15 years ago in total number of employees? Where were we 10 years ago in total number of employees? And kind of a breakdown of teacher versus administrative would help me kind of understand, well, when we get into budgeting season, are there some positions that we don't need to fill if somebody retires? Or are there some positions that we, that we are all in agreement that we just, obviously the vast majority, where I think we're all in agreement that we have to fill, but are there some, I just don't quite have a good understanding of that. And I think the only way I can get a good understanding is if I see kind of where we've been in terms of how many employees we have, administrative and teacher-wise over the last 15 years, and where we are today. And also what those, kind of who's in what departments and what they do. How many administrative assistants do we have, those types of things.
In the public hearing we have every year, in the presentation, there's a slide that has the breakdown of principals, and it has administrators, teachers, assistants, maintenance. It breaks it down that way. So what I can do is just go last 10 years, 12 years, and just kind of put it on a spreadsheet for you, if you'd like, and then maybe put enrollment next to it so you can see as enrollment's going up and down.
Yeah, that would be
Our employee
helpful.
count would be, I'll start there and send it to you, and
Yes.
we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, and if you, yeah, you can even send it to me, and we could just kind of go back and forth and have more questions about that. The second question was the school improvement plans. I know it said it's required that we have school improvement plans. Is the form that they're set up in, is that required? We have no discretion on that format, because the format's not real informative. It's a 26-page budget, for example, for one school, and 20 page.
I'm sorry, that is out of my office, and I work with the principals on that. That is the required state, it's called MCAPS, it is the platform that we are required to use. And that is, those are the questions they have to go through, it's uniform across the state for every school and school.
Okay. And so, yeah, there's no discretion that we get a different type of, like, we add, you know, and I guess what I was looking at is, like, from an accountability or a goals perspective, it's hard for me to come back next year and say, well, you know, this was our school improvement plan and we didn't meet this criteria, or this was the recommendation for a goal and or recommendation for action item. You know, it seems almost more like a budget to me than what I would consider to be a plan of action.
Right, it's the questions that are in there, and the thing that is changing when they went into this MCAPS platform is that the school stays in improvement. They're not re-identified, which basically none of our schools were re-identified that were already here. The three you've been hearing from, Mr. Smurthwaite, Dr. Nix, and Dr. Payton. They weren't re-identified from these past scores. They just didn't meet the exit criteria. So they're like in continuing improvement. So a lot of those questions in there, I'm sure you saw, were just gray boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the state is not requiring them to go back and reassess everything, but to move forward with their plan as long as things are improving.
Okay.
But it's not a very friendly looking, easy to read type thing.
Yeah, it's just, it wasn't really informing me of, I mean, outside of just figures, and I mean, if you really kind of, I guess, decipher it out, you can get a little bit of an understanding of what the plan is, but anyway, it just wasn't, I guess, it certainly wasn't easily discernible. But if we don't have discretion in it, you know, we don't have discretion in it. And then my final question was district-wide improvements. That was that was a big ticket item from a construction standpoint. And for us to advertise for district-wide improvements, I just did not recall, what were we budgeting for that, if any, for district-wide improvements? And how is that gonna impact our budget? Because it's a large amount.
Right, it wasn't included in the 1920 budget that we're currently in. So it would be something that would impact next year's budget, because once we got into the project, it would start during the summer. So whenever the payments started coming in, it would affect the 2021 budget. That's where we would budget the project.
All right, and so there's no real concern, and so if that was, so if we went ahead and started, you know, requesting bids and everything and moving forward with the process and put it in the 2021 budget, you know, and we all agreed to that, there's not really a concern from y'all that if that was included, because like the Performing Arts Center and some other things would be rolling off, that it would really increase the budget from a construction standpoint? Or would this be an increase in the budget from a construction
The
standpoint?
Performing Arts Center will be separate because it's under the 3 mil note.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's
we'll have the dedicated amount of money that comes out for that.
That's right.
The issue here is that if, in the event, we have the fund balance capacity to be able to cover that project, and it comes down to, when we look at what needs to be done, the carpet issue is an issue for us, the abatement issue is an issue for us to get to, and, so we've brainstormed about what are some things that we could do to enhance the quality of, the buildings, and carpet and painting were the two things that came up, and it's a pretty overall group of things, including drainage, I believe, windows into schools, just things that need to be addressed. We feel confident that we have the ability to use fund balance and existing funds to be able to help cover that.
Okay, that's helpful. So, I mean, in sum, there's no real concern that this would be enough of an uptick in the budget that we'd have to raise taxes or do anything like that? Okay. And do we have any feedback on how revenues are coming from, I mean, just construction that's taking place in the area, or?
We really won't see what revenue's really doing until February.
Right.
Because whenever, everybody's paying their mortgages, I mean, their escrows right now, and so that settlement will come to us in February. So that's when we'll really know how things are coming in, and if we're on target and collecting that more than what we budgeted.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Nay. Motion carries 4-0.
Attached is the district docket of claims, beginning with claim number 1840565 through 1842179 for the month of December 2019, and recommended the Board of Trustees ratify the payment of claims as presented in the attached docket of claims.
Motion to approve. Motion approved by Mr. Irving,
Second.
second by Ms. Wilson. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Nay. Same. Motion carries 3-0. And we had one in, yeah, Mr. Irving wanted to know if we wanted to go ahead and just do the, request for the, school replacement. We'll do that right now, and then, McNeil can come in. In other words, be a little out of order.
4D?
Right, 4D, right, I don't have a number on there, it's got to be 4D. So we'll, at your office, if we can just go ahead and do 4D.
You just said I'll leave it up there.
You gonna move it up there, okay?
I'm sorry, down the process.
If you refresh, it should be there.
Pascagoula-Gautier High School roof replacement and miscellaneous district-wide roofing improvements project were opened December 17, 2019. Total of 5 bids were received. The lowest bid was from Mandels Incorporated, submitting a total bid of $2,347,302. Mr. Ron Forrest, KVH Architect, has reviewed the bid and has recommended the awarding of the contract. A copy of the bid declaration form is attached for your perusal. Recommended the Board of Trustees approve the bid from Mandels Incorporated in the amount of $2,347,302 for the Goshen High School roof replacement and miscellaneous district-wide roofing improvement project. The approved project will be paid from district maintenance funds.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Wilson. Second by Mr. Irving. Any discussion on the item?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Can I just, as
Sure.
Brian has mentioned in his letter, I think it'd be good for the board to make a factual determination that the error that was made was evident on the face of the bid proposal form. If you look at the math, it's like $22,302 error that Mandels made. It was just a simple calculation even with that, they would still be the lowest bidder, so just need to have that.
Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0, one abstention. Agenda item 4C.
Before B, or here, wait, 4C, I'm sorry. For the Performing Arts Center, close to completion, it's time to hire a coordinator for facility, position is a new position for the district. Job description for the Performing Arts Center coordinator has been created with board review. The position will also oversee the different art programs of the district to include band, choral, and theater. As recommended, board of trustees approve the job description for the Performing Arts Center coordinator.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Martinez,
Second.
second by Mr. Irvin. Any discussion on the item? I have one question. Go ahead,
I was just, do we have a set salary, or is this something that's gonna be a range and they'll be evaluated on their,
Mr. Robertson and I spoke about it, he was they're on the director's scale, depending on the, that'll be part of the negotiation, person selected and the experience.
Same question. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0. Item 4D.
With the Performing Arts Center close to completion, it is time to hire an audiovisual and theatrical technician for the facility. Position is a new position for the district. A job description for the Performing Arts Center audiovisual and theatrical technician has been created for board review. It is recommended with board of trustees approve the job description for the Performing Arts Center audiovisual and theatrical technician.
Heard the superintendent's recommendation, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Irving,
Second.
second by Mr. McNeil. Any discussion on the item? Is that gonna be kinda like, we'll just say Mr. Swift in here? Is that gonna kinda, like
Yes.
long, their salary
They'll be
range?
and they'll be responsible for both Performing Arts Centers.
Okay,
Whenever it comes to making sure all the technology is in place, making sure everyone's properly trained to assist.
Will that person be under the technology department?
They'll split between technology department and the Performing Arts coordinator.
Okay. Is there a potential that that person may not have enough to do as a full-time job, and so they might need the additional
Yeah,
help,
they'll be
assistance to,
used yes, they'll be used.
for the IT department?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0. Item 5A. We have vandalism. This is the first time we've had something just about all year, isn't it? I believe so far. It's on FR 255-56. Anybody have any comments about the vandalism report? Next, we'll go to the discipline report. Any board member have any comments about the discipline report? Next item, my favorite, construction update. Any questions from any board members or comments? Can't let Weber and Ryan get off days. Okay.
Well, there's some, we do want to share some things with you guys. I talked to Ms. Wilson about this, Mr. Bax is here today. This is some of the murals that will be stripped across in the upstairs and downstairs. Against, we have certain walls that will be on. We have additional, y'all have those packets with you.
Yes, we have a packet there.
And there's a packet with just various artwork that will be there. They'll be all throughout the building. Ryan can talk to you about the person that they've hired to do this work. We were able to make some selections of some of the local artists that we have here, and there's some other local artists that will also be featured in this process.
None of those are final images, those are just initial.
They're just concepts. Everything's conceptual at this point.
Would you like to inform the rest of the board about the lady that was hired?
Sure, yes, Jean Whitehead, with Mississippi Art Design Consultants, she basically, does this throughout the whole state, basically helping furnish art buildings. And so we kind of built this into the project, budget-wise, to allow for that, knowing it would be necessary. So she's started sourcing art, and then we will be making final selections to, have them hung and ready at the same time furniture is installed. So, I know Mr. Goldman just wanted to share that as very preliminary information. We can certainly update the board as necessary as we move forward and, make more final selections. The items back there, there's 7 walls in the building, all in the lobby, so there's 4 on the ground floor, 3 on the top floor. Just different local images, so we will be turning those loose, with just all the wall pieces and comments. Turn those to production soon, so.
Any comments by the board?
When do we expect ribbon cutting or the formal
Hopefully
open?
mid-March, not the 15th, but any other day. March 15th is an unlucky day. Ides of March.
No.
Caesar made the mistake of saying when you get together on that day, it wasn't a good day. But I would like for you guys to come back through the center again. They've made a lot of updates to it, and it's getting cleaned up real nice. And, there's gonna be some things on the punch list I've got to correct, but you can really feel the power of that center.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Next item, we'll go to summer leadership training, 5B. Any comments about that? Questions for the officer?
I actually put it on here to invite feedback from you guys. Last year, we try to do some type of immersive learning opportunity, and that's what we did last year, and we have structural, organizational questions and activities that we do as a result of that in our July training. That's kind of an information gathering time for us while we're there. Ron Clark has been a very popular trainer of our people, and I think our administrators, a lot of what we do open school is based off of Ron Clark's way he opened school at his academy in Atlanta. So we're going to get to spend a good portion of the day with him and his staff at their school, which is a very unique philanthropic creation. The quality of service at Chick-fil-A, there's no cost to that trip for us as it relates to going to their 1 hour backstage, how they do hospitality, how they created that organization from a little breakfast shop right next to a car manufacturing place in Atlanta. And then finally the Martin Luther King National Park, which also comes at no cost, but I just think it's important that we grasp the opportunity to learn more about our civil rights history and keep it fresh on our minds how we need to be creating equity for all people. And it's just a tremendous trip. I took my children there last year and experienced it, and it was just an unbelievable experience. And I wanted to share that with our people in training, in their training.
Would you like to share with the rest of the board who Ron Clark is? I mean, as an educator, I understand maybe.
Well,
some of you never
Baron
heard
Clark
of
is
him.
Pam is the president.
And Mark the wife.
Might as well be, because I thought her and Suzanne Ross were fighting to marry him whenever they first went up there. But Ms. Rome can tell you about their experience up there. And it's kind of their enthusiasm that's made me enthusiastic about the chance to go up there and see that.
Yes, for sure. It is an absolutely magical experience to go. We had the opportunity to go, I believe, 6 years ago. And after that opportunity, I really felt guilty as an administrator because I felt like my school was so boring before I went and experienced Ron Clark Academy. And coming back the summer that we went, Ms. Sharp, Ms. Ross, and myself were all in the car traveling back together, and we planned our entire back-to-school rally and everything for our students and our teachers on the way back, because that's how we incorporated the house system. A lot of our schools do the house system at our schools. That's how we got that, and we do house parties, and it's a very, it's a way to make every child connected to something in a school. And our kids work really hard for their house. And these are all things that we learned straight from Ron Clark, and we came back and implemented it, still implement it to this day. Our children, middle and high school children, every time I see them, they talk about what house they were in, you know, do the sign. It's just it's a really cool thing. And anything you want to say?
What I would like to add is just that I believe our kids at Singing River Academy and at other schools in the district that have implemented the systems that they learned at the Ron Clark Academy, our kids are more engaged, and they walk through the halls of our schools learning to incorporate leadership skills in their everyday life. And I think we've done numerous presentations. Our kids are phenomenal speakers. They present. They've done numerous videos. We believe that we're raising kids to be heads of corporations, future broadcasters. We are raising our kids to be leaders. And I think anyone that visits our school and has the opportunity to meet our students, the amazing shake that we've done for the last couple of years have come out of the Ron Clark Academy too. So we are giving our students not only that connected piece and that excitement to come to school, but also leadership skills that are going to serve them for the rest of their lives.
I'm sure that things like that are cause our community to comment how nice and professional our kids are when they do go on trips and such. Any other comments?
Sounds like a fun trip and a rewarding and educational experience.
Really does. Next item, 5C, monthly financials. Any comments there? For the audience, you know, we seem to buzz through a lot of this, but we've had all this information since Thursday. We've had a chance to look at it, so it's not something we're just making a real quick decision. Hearing no comments there on item 6A, Cleon Irving about the dirt work negotiation.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson actually wanted me to add this item on there, and it's related. He wanted to move forward with approaching Jackson County on Goshen High School athletic complex expansions and doing the site work, trying to get the site work ready with the dirt work and just trying to get it in front of this project for a long time. And Mr. Rodolphus might have some more color to add to this, but
The biggest issue is that is the environmental issue that we face. And so we'll have to engage our architect to engage the
Environmental consultant, wellness consultant, basically.
So we gotta make sure that we're clear there, then we'll have a timeline to finish construction after that's been done. But we'd like to get the board's permission to explore with the consultant first, and then Jackson County Board of Supervisors to come in and do the dirt work and clear it for us, the area that we're talking about.
Yeah, one challenge with that, I mean, we're gonna kind of, when we go back to approach the Corps of Engineers, we're gonna have to kind of lay out the overall plan. And it can be over 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is, but we can't say, oh, let's move some dirt and then we'll do something later. It doesn't work that way. And so we kind of have to tell them this is what we want to do and let them look at that. So,
That's
I
what
think
I
we
have to
can,
get
I
your
think that's
permission.
doable, but that's,
Have to get your permission before I can proceed with that.
Sounds like a good idea, do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Irving, second by Mr. McNeil. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0.
And
Yes.
I guess on related to this, I mean, I do want to say, as a district, sometimes you like to discuss different things that go on. And I would like to applaud Mr. Freeman. Last weekend, I ended up having severe trauma to my eye. I got hit with a baseball to my eye. Right now, the vision's still not there all the way, but once Mr. Freeman found out about it, he called me several days last week to check on me to see if I was doing better or whatever. So, I mean, we sometimes don't think everyone cares, but I mean, that goes a long way when I get a call every day trying to check to make sure everything is okay with me. You know, I debated on saying I was in a UFC fight or something. Also, and also have another announcement. It's not because it's my kid, but when something good in the district happens, I like for everyone to know about it. And my son's a 9th grade freshman at Gautier High School, as we all know, and he plays sports over there. And this weekend, he actually was offered a scholarship to play baseball for Ole Miss, and he accepted and committed to Ole Miss. So I think as a district, you know, like I say, not because it's my kid, it's good to know things that's going on between the schools. So.
That's good. Well, it's a big honor to get the scholarship if you're a senior. But when you're a freshman and you haven't even started baseball in high school, that's a huge honor. Any other comments? Okay, we need approval to close the meeting to determine the executive session.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Wilson,
Second.
second by Mr. Irving. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0.